did about 8 million last year. Was that correct?
Yeah, we're sort of the Mercedes-Benz or perhaps even Rolls-Royce of our category, where most people are think of these few $100 or less tens units on Amazon, right? And our product is $15,000 to $20,000. I had an injury with some torn ligaments, thought I was going to have surgery. This combination helped me avoid surgery, where I realized the real next move for me was actually I had to create the darn thing myself. Really, looking back on it, powerful and wonderful experience also to look and see the ways that I was holding us back.
Welcome back to the M19 podcast. I'm your host, Javi Chavez. Today, I am with a fitness and rehabilitation expert. It seems like you're crushing it. Garrett Salpeter, how are you, man?
Javi, it's great to be here.
Sweet. And so we were talking a little bit. So you're did about 8 million last year. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. And then so pushing the 8-figure mark this year, which will be a great accomplishment. But before we get into the business, tell me a little bit more about kind of how you ended up here, your background, and what you've been up to, man.
I feel very fortunate to have found the place where my interests overlap with ways that I can be productive and useful in the world. You know, my academic background is originally I was a physics major. I went right after college, went to graduate school in engineering, and then later on along the way, did additional graduate school in neuroscience. So I was able to sort of find ways where all my interests overlap and combine also with my experience as an athlete. I grew up playing ice hockey, played in college.
Nice.
And one of the biggest catalysts for all of this is an injury I had. You know, I had these experiences growing up where I had injuries and I was just so disappointed with traditional physical therapy, traditional orthopedic medicine. And then towards the end of my time in college, I had an injury with some torn ligaments, thought I was going to have surgery. And I met a guy who was a chiropractor who was doing these unique treatments, just happened to meet him through a friend of a friend. And he was working with the nervous system and the neurological response to injury, doing something called functional neurology. And he was the first person to really teach me how important the neurological response to injury was in the overall healing process. And then he was using direct current to influence the body's underlying healing processes. And this combination helped me avoid surgery. And I was relieved as a hockey player, but as a physics major, pre-engineering student, to find something that actually made sense scientifically from first principles. It was just like this amazing revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through that experience, I felt a calling to share that work with as many people as I could. And that ended up launching me on this path that's now 18 to 20 years later, still on the path.
Doing it. Yeah. So a lot of people say like, hey, do what you love, do what you love. I personally don't agree with that fully, right? And kind of what you were talking about, you found kind of the Venn diagram of like what you're good at and kind of what you are passionate about, but also what can serve a lot of people, what can actually build a business around it. And that's kind of where I think you've landed. And I think that's where you can get lifelong fulfillment and really run a business, because you can make a lot of money doing a lot of different things. And some people do one route of making money, just grinding it out, something that they're partially good at but might not love, and then they try to parlay that into a business. But I think what's interesting about you is you kind of found it early on, and then were able to serve a lot of people, it sounds like, to get to where you're at today. So yeah, walk me through kind of how the business is structured. You've been doing it for a long time. I know you mentioned you have like a physical therapy clinic. Is that the accurate way to put it? Or yeah. And then obviously you have your business. So what takes up most of your time, and kind of break down the business structure a little bit?
Well, it's one of those things, just piggybacking on what you said before, that concept of the Venn diagram overlap. And
yeah,
I think the Japanese word, I think it's ikigai,
mm-hmm.
where you find where all that overlaps. And I think it is interesting. You know, there's a lot of people that go to business school and then look for a business opportunity. I'm sort of the opposite. I had the opportunity and then have had to learn business along the way. So a lot of this has been, education by necessity.
Yeah,
learning this here.
And really quick, what's interesting too is a lot of people in your position typically end up partnering with some business person, and they kind of have that like CEO, COO kind of type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then so for you figured out the business aspect, because you're solo, correct? Or do you have business partners?
So I'm the solo, primary owner of the business.
Uh-huh.
One of the big breakthroughs along the way was in the last year and a half, actually finally finding and hiring that number two, that integrator to my visionary, or COO to my CEO.
Yep.
So we finally have that. And that has helped us then, after being on a plateau for several years, that has helped me unlock the next levels, or helped us unlock next levels by helping me balance out the areas where I'm not as good. He's helped us double the size of our sales team and increase some new marketing initiatives and do more of those growth driving activities that I just wasn't as good at.
Yeah, and I think that's huge because a lot of entrepreneurs they get here, but book, what got you here won't get you there type of situation. And so that's huge. And so how long so tell me about your first million. Like when did you hit that?
That's a good question. So, it's one of those things that back before hitting that seven figure mark,
Mhm.
I always thought it was going to have to be some huge deal or,
Mm.
some grand slam home run. And really it was the equivalent of just hitting a bunch of singles and doubles, making some sales here and sales there. And it just sort of happened.
Yep.
So in the first year we were selling our product. Well, that first million actually was, so I was running this clinic for, I mentioned 8 years, even before I finally decided to start developing. I didn't set out to start a medical device company. So I was running this clinic that hit the seven figure mark 6, 7, 8 years in.
Mhm.
And then towards that time, like along that way, I was just learning more methodology. I was waiting for someone to come out with better versions of this technology, kind of next generation of it, so I could use that to open more facilities. And then finally got to the point where I realized the real next move for me was actually I had to create the darn thing myself. I had all these ideas and all these different signs were telling me that I had to do it. So that was yeah, it was 7 or so years to reach that seven figure mark for the first time. And it was in the clinic business. And then thankfully I was able to just live very modestly and reinvest all those profits to fund the development of the device.
Mhm.
Plus had to get some friends and family, convertible notes and stuff along the way too. But
Yeah.
so that was and then in the device business grew, went maybe like, 300,000, 700,000, then a million, kind of doubled each year for those first few years, made the Inc. 5,000 a few years in a row.
Mhm.
And then we kind of hit a plateau. So it happened in the device business a lot faster, certainly.
For sure. Well, because you had all the skill set, the tools, the resources that you've learned from the first business to
Yeah.
then parlay into this one.
And also just a bigger opportunity.
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely, right? You can only
more
service so
scale.
many people at the clinic versus this is there anybody else in your space kind of doing this, or are you the only one in the device business?
So there's in terms of like competitive
Yeah,
landscape.
yeah.
So there's, we're sort of the Mercedes Benz or perhaps even Rolls Royce of our category, where most people are think of these few $100 or less tens units on Amazon, right? And our product is $15,000 to $20,000
Oh,
because of
wow.
this type of current, the methodology, the sophistication, the engineering, the methodology, all of it. So there's that sort of thing, and then so we do have to differentiate ourselves. That's an opportunity for us to educate people on the difference there. And then there's also higher end medical devices. There's lasers or shockwaves that can be priced like ours, 20,000, or it can be 40 or 50,000.
Wow.
Other devices there. So oftentimes we're getting questions about how is it different from those other categories of technology.
Mhm.
So the real competitors are usually more the lower end electrical stimulation or other higher end devices in sort of adjacent
Got it.
categories. Then we got a copycat or two trying to
Trying to
jump in
jump
there.
in.
Yeah.
You guys know I love the game of golf, and that is why I started M19. It is a golf mastermind for entrepreneurs who are doing over seven figures in their business and who want to go on bucket list golf trips together. We already have hundreds of members all across the country, and we've been to some of the best courses in the world, places like Pebble Beach, Pinehurst, Bandon Dunes, and many others. The course is the best place to do deals, make great relationships, and have fun. So go to mastermind19.com today.
And so what really has been the catalyst? I know you mentioned the COO, but I know you were plateaued for a little bit.
Mhm.
So what was the big shift for you to now get to this next level?
That's a really good question. I did a lot of soul searching when we were on this plateau, and I'm experiencing frustration. And it was a really humbling and really looking back on it, powerful and wonderful experience also to look and see the ways that I was holding us back. I'm looking at the different patterns that I had. There were certain issues that would pop up, especially one in particular with personnel, where there was someone who was, I would say, harmful to the culture, and
Mm,
I let that person stick around for a lot longer. And so that was really like holding up a mirror, forcing me like, what the heck is going on? Why is this happening? So I did a lot of work and came to understand how some of my patterns were holding us back in terms of people pleasing tendencies, difficulty setting boundaries, things like that. And so that was really, on the one hand, upsetting and frustrating, but on the other, empowering to understand that, hey, if I've had some say in getting us here, I can also have some say in getting us out of here. So I think a lot of it was mindset, and then a lot of it was learning, what to do and figuring out where the bottlenecks were, and then getting the right people in place. So it's sort of a combination of like there's 10 things that are 10-week links, and then working on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You sort of in the same place. Then once you hit 10, then it grows.
Yep.
Because it can't grow until they're all in place.
Exactly. Yeah. Like law of the lid, number one, right? And you kind of mentioned it, where the business is only going to grow as big as you, right? So like understanding what your deficiencies are, what your weaknesses are, and then what you mentioned, then either hiring out those weaknesses or figuring out a way to partner and kind of do what you're doing. So that makes a lot of sense. And then you also mentioned people. I think once you I think the biggest difference between getting from 1 million to 10 million, it's all people, in my opinion. Getting the right people in the right seats and then giving them the right vision. And we've been so guilty of what you just mentioned too, just having people that probably sat in a seat for a little too long and then impacted culture, impacted those types of things. But the second, what we have to do, and kind of my role as COO too, is preserving that culture. And then, Ryan doesn't fire anybody. I'm the one having those tough conversations. But that's what he pays me for. So it makes a lot of sense. So that's great. So pivoting into golf, when'd you start playing?
I played a little bit as a kid, and then I've had periods where I'd play a lot over one summer, and then I had periods where I played once or twice in a span of a few years, very, very little, when my kids were young, and I was just so focused on early days of my business and kids, and then I've finally gotten into a rhythm where I got to play a little more off and on in the last couple of years, and getting a little bit of a rhythm here and there. Finally got into a single digit handicap, which was a milestone.
That's a huge milestone.
So that was one goal. So now on to the next goal.
But what's the next goal?
Break 80.
There we go.
I still haven't done that yet.
Yeah. Well, today might be the day.
Could be.
So we're playing at Southern Highlands today. So beautiful course. So we're gonna have some fun. And from like a business perspective, has golf ever served you? Like, have you taken clients out or partners out or friends? Is it just been a fun thing, and then that's why you got into this?
A little bit of that. It's more of a fun thing. I think the biggest way, if you ask me how it's helped me in business, I would say are the lessons learned there. I certainly have played with people. I'm thinking of one in particular where I went out and I was at a conference, and there's a great guy who owns a physical therapy clinic in Maryland. And I was in DC for a physical therapy conference. So I drove out to meet him, and we played this course there. It was just a really fun bonding, got to know a guy who I hadn't spent much time with, but I really like, and we have a good business and now friendship connection too. So it's been, it's a really wonderful avenue in that regard. But I really like so many of the lessons that you, Javi, and you listening to this know about golf, about being able to stay even through the ups and downs. I read this book in the last couple of years, and it reinvigorated my passion for the game, called The Inner Game of Golf. You ever read that by Tim Galway? So Tim Galway originally wrote The Inner Game of Tennis. He's a tennis coach, and then he wrote this companion book, or kind of sequel, The Inner Game of Golf, which I liked better just because I'm more relevant to me. And so he talks about, there's so many wonderful things in there. I highly recommend the book. So he talks about, for instance, this notion of self one and self two. He talks about how we all have these two selves. Self one is our egoic intellectual mind that's trying to impose a certain pattern. It's thinking these swing thoughts of, I need to keep my head down. I need to rotate through here. I need to hit this finish position. Yeah. And self two is our subconscious. That's our potential that just does whatever it'll do on its own. And so part of the idea is to get self one to not interfere with self two, to allow ourselves to express our full potential without the mind interfering. So I love this framework. And one of the things that he talks about is how self one, our mind, of course, is going to think about something. So we need to give it something to think about. So what he recommends is not giving it a swing thought to impose on self two, on ourselves, but to give it the thought of observing, picking something to observe. So instead of imposing, it's observing. So it's sort of a mindfulness, meditative framework for golf.
I like this concept. So instead of because I I used to have, and sometimes I still do. I'll have like 8 swing thoughts in my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, am I aligned right? Are my hands right? My grip right? Okay. Oh, my backswing down. All this
Yeah.
stuff, right? So I've reduced it down to 1. But speak more on this concept of having like of observing, because this is a really interesting thing. So what are you observing in your, if you have an observation right now,
So
like in your swing?
my favorite one to observe is the plane of my downswing. If
Mm,
it's more, and he suggests, and I just follow and adopted this notion of, if I swing, even would be a 0, in to out would be -1, -2, -3, out to in would be +1, +2,
Yeah.
+3. So when I'm doing some warm up swings on the golf course, I sort of get a feel like, okay, what's a +3, what's a -3, and then I swing. And when I'm swinging, I just observe. So I don't try intentionally
to swing into
to do
out
anything
or
differently.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just ask myself after the swing, okay, what was that swing plane?
Hmm.
And it's been a really fascinating experience.
That's super interesting. I'm gonna try that today.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I'll let everyone know in the next episode. Okay. And how'd you find us?
Instagram ads.
There we go.
You know?
They're working.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to like fill out the form, do the thing, and jump in? From seeing the ad to
I saw it and I was like, huh, that's cool. It sort of meets one of the things I wanted to do this year was have some more cool trips and adventures. I had just gotten this big ass calendar for the year. If you're familiar with that, the Jesse Itzler.
yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So I had just gotten this and I was like, I'd like to go on some trips this year. And I saw that ad the next day. I was like, this is divine.
The algorithm works.
I was like, all right. So I saw it. So I filled out the form. I was on, had the call with someone on your team.
Yep.
I don't know, the following week.
Yep.
I was like, all right, I'll just sign up and give it a shot.
Yeah. Well, not bad. And then, so, I mean, it's super new. So this is your first experience with us.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's going to be a good one. And have you connected with anyone kind of in your area or anything like that, or not yet?
So I had a really wonderful connection. Jeff Puglisi, the physician.
Yeah. No, Jeff. Yeah.
Greenwich. So Jeff, I'm in Austin, and Jeff was coming through Austin. So he actually reached out to me through the app and invited me to play.
There we go.
And so I met him. And then there's a local physician in Austin, Amy Garza, who was there.
Oh, yeah. I actually just played golf with Amy in Pebble. So
Nice.
she's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Jeff put it together around where I played with the two of them when they were in Austin.
Wow.
And then I actually have played again with Amy at an outing since then.
There we
So
go.
she's wonderful. She has a great practice. She would love to get her on here. She's got great knowledge about health and longevity and hormones.
She was super cool.
Yeah, really wonderful physician and college golfer. She's got some skills too.
Yeah, she was. She played from the Blues with us on. I forget which day it was, but because we were all playing a game and doing having some fun. And she's like, "Yeah, I'll play back here with you guys just to make it easy." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And dude, she has a great swing. So yeah, shout out Amy.
So actually, if you ever are putting together a team for an outing or a scramble, think about Amy, because we played one where we had a foursome. We were doing a scramble, and she was able to play from the ladies' tees.
Yeah.
So there's a couple holes where she's hitting the ball nearly as far as we are, and yet she's teeing off, 100 yards further up. So
Yeah.
So
And
we're definitely using her drives.
Yeah, and she's always in the fairway. Like she had a great swing. So shout out Amy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great that in such a short period of time you're already kind of like meeting people, connecting, and then obviously your first trip's going to be Bandon.
First trip will be Bandon, yeah.
Oh, that's a good first trip. Yeah.
So it'll be just after my 40th birthday, so I'm considering it part of my
Part of the birthday
part of
celebration.
birthday, yeah.
Cool, man. So my final question I always like to ask
Sure.
is, if this was your last podcast or the last time somebody heard your voice, what's one thing you'd want people to know?
I would want people to know the skill, the ability of slowing down enough to drop in, to listen to themselves, to be able to tune into their true self and be able to use that to discern when they're acting in a way that is in alignment with or not in alignment with that true self.
That's great advice. So Garrett, where can people find out more about you?
Best place would probably be NewFit Instagram, or my personal Instagram, Garrett.Salpeter. And Instagram, I link to our NewFit page on there, NewFit RFP for rehab, fitness, and
Cool.
performance.
Put that in the notes.
Website is www.new.fit, like NEU, like neurological.
Mhm. Love it.